Hey guys, Anthony with Austin Darko Webbuild here. Once again, our home away from home in Vigilante, which is opening for actual business on Friday. So if you guys are local, want to come hang out, play board games somewhere, get out of the house, definitely come by and check it out. Anyway, plug over, moving right into things. Tonight, again, diving into more of the ideas I have of combining weapon systems, looking at ideas and concepts that we see a lot of spelled out in other places and trying to pull them across into other systems, other ways of fighting. One of the biggest things today I want to get into is, I don't know how to describe it, beyond footwork, kind of weight sharing and weight transfer, things like that. In Fabrice, earlier in his book 1, when he's talking about counter postures and how to approach and how to advance, he gives in a very, very explicit detail of if you're in long measure, which again, long measure is I can't reach without taking a step. But the problem there is if I can reach them as I step in, they can hit me. How do I close that distance safely? How do I make that transition from long measure where no one's in immediate danger to that close measure where either person can be hit at any time? And I kind of phrase them that way because that's how they're parsed more commonly in the other weapons. In longsword, we kind of have this idea of Krieg, which while loosely defined, you're kind of assuming that you can hit the other person with your sword, which means by extension, they can hit you with their swords. So making that transition is awkward. There's a handful of ways we can do things. Tonight is just another option, another, again, tool in your tool belt to kind of play with and build into your own personal style. So what Fabrice talks about, again, ignoring the lack of threat from my Pell, right? So if I'm at close distance, I can hit without a step. But if I'm way back here, how do I close that distance safely without just exposing myself, without just diving in to make my own attack and do it safely? What Fabrice cautions, advises is very distinct. I haven't seen it in other sources, not that I've put a lot of footwork, but a lot of times you don't have a lot of footwork information, especially looking at the early sources that I'm more familiar with. His advice from our stance, we shift all of our weight to our back foot and then slowly creep our front foot out, but we move that foot without advancing our body. I don't know how visible my footwork is in video here, but I'm really looking to go from this position to here, and notice my chest hasn't moved at all, my range hasn't changed at all. Once this is safe, now I can transfer my weight and make my attack, and I'm closing a lot more distance than I do normally, much quicker. So it's not just this lean, it's this step plus this lean, but because I've been able to back weight and sneak this foot out without revealing what I'm doing, I'm able to sit here and then drive through and make that motion. This came up very explicitly for myself working through some of the Fabrice plates, where you're looking to make a cross motion, react to your opponent's actions, and then the backstep Girata here. And I found that with normal footwork, if I advanced to find the person's weapon, my Girata, there was no time for that to happen without getting stabbed. So it really becomes this idea of like, okay, I can start to close this distance, and if I make the Girata as a reaction here, I'm able to close distance safely. I'm able to enter space safely without overcommitting my actions, overcommitting things like that. So a few examples in that rapier idea before we kind of start looking across systems to really kind of isolate what this is doing, what this is useful for. So the biggest one that I've seen that I really like, and going to be hard to demonstrate on a static fell without a partner, but really kind of working off there is I can move to find my opponent's weapon or change sides or whatever I need to do from here, but I'm not doing it by advancing. Right? If I'm going to attack, I will advance, drive through. Same with any kind of change through. I'm going to come across, lean, find those openings, find those positions. But if I'm less certain about what's going on, really getting used to this idea that this foot's going to move by itself, and then I'm going to sit on top of it. So just kind of playing with that idea. I'm out. I slip the foot forward without advancing myself, and then I can make whatever motion I want. And again, where this one really highlights for me that feeling of, if this attack is coming in, I've committed my attack to come off to my left, to cover the inside line. They change that line and make this attack anyway. If I'm committed on this foot, I can't turn out and block and void the same way I can if I'm back here and can step through stepping around. And it's just really getting you that feeling of, I'm in position, I sneak a foot forward, and then I attack, or I step off to attack, or I change my line, things like that. And this is almost in my head the kind of rapier version of a gather step, right? Only kind of backwards. We've always talked about simple steps in the past where I'm here, as I advance, everything moves together. And a gather step is this foot sneaks up, and then I step out like that. And this is kind of turning them both on their head, where I advance by staying static, and then I reset forward. And I can use that reset forward to steal time, steal distance from my opponent. So looking at that, bringing that back to other weapons. First, and perhaps most easily, most common sense, would be any other Dusak single-handed weapons, whether it's Dusak, whether it's Messer. But you can get away with some of this stuff in side sword as well. That's outside my realm of knowledge. Sword and buckler, this definitely applies, but in a different way, and that's going to be a total tangent because there's too much sword and buckler background knowledge for that. That said, any kind of Dusak, Messer thing like this, a lot of this information is directly applicable, easily coming across. And it's really just getting the habit of, if I'm up and watch, how do I situate myself so I don't obviously have to gather up to do this? How can I make my positions in a way that I can sit here, or here if I'm in low guard, sneak that foot out more to drive in harder, faster, and changing lines and changing angles. Remember a few weeks ago, I believe we talked about kind of the gather behind from the straight parry, where we step out, gather behind, and step out. And that's going to be, again, that kind of mirror image of what we're talking about right now. With the straight parry drill, we went here, gathered together, came across. We're looking for that opposite of, we bait an attack, maybe stepping this out, throwing that cut without advancing, seeing what they're doing, and then if nothing happens, you can drive in with a follow-through attack. Something like that would be a very good, useful application, carryover of this technique, right? So I'm not stepping to cut anymore, to step and strike and move. Instead, I step, I cheat the flip, but notice I don't move at all. And from here, I can drive in whatever kind of cut, whatever action I want to happen next. And the big improvement takeaway for me now is I can cover distance much faster than I can otherwise. And the total time elapsed can be about the same, but I'm no longer stepping 1, 2. Instead, I'm stepping 1, 2. And my second hit's the same, but the distance I travel in the first hit is different. So again, if I'm here, I step 1, 2. I'm just hitting with the Pel with the edge of my Dusak. But instead, if I 1 there, 2, I'm covering all that distance on my second step. And I'm not really leaping, I'm not springing more than I would normally. But instead, it's really about, I shift my weight to above my foot for one tempo, second tempo comes back down. So I hope that really helps us start highlight and isolate the practicality, the usefulness of this. Is we're kind of, again, baiting an opening, baiting an action, using this as a provoking action. And then my take or my hit or whatever else comes from here, I'm able to close distance, change lines, have a lot more dynamics of that movement without overcommitting and really displaying what my intentions are. So again, super simple, basic application for right now. We're up and watch, throw that cut, right? Still take the step, but sit back. Sit back in your hips, sit down in the chair, throw that leg out forward. For a quick aside, this is very much like a traditional martial arts, Eastern martial arts kind of back stance, right? Where I'm all my weight's on this back leg, I'm able to pick up this foot, Same thing here, except I sit down a little bit, I keep that foot pointed forward, because I am going to spring forward, I'm going to move out of it, and then I can kind of step through and do whatever I want, covering a lot more ground a lot quicker than I would if I was just stepping through normally. So the interesting thing, the thing that I think is super exciting to start thinking about is bringing this idea over to longsword. And something I've been stewing with for the last couple of days, haven't played with it before now, so you could totally get to see what happens concept application as we come through. So longsword, there's a whole lot of lecture talking about true time, false time, speed of the hand, body, and foot, right? And at least it was general consensus, I don't know if it is anymore, is you always want to throw hands first, body, and then feet. That throws a good cut. It keeps you safe. I'm working from here, and it avoids me doing things like this, where I move my foot, my body, and then my hands, because that gets me way too close to my opponent. It's exactly the problem Fabrice was addressing, right? How do I get close enough to hit my opponent without exposing myself to being hit? The kind of de facto standard in longsword that I've come across has been throw the sword out first, step behind it, and you're safe. And you kind of really don't get the wound out of it, but you still get to make that closing distance action. And it kind of really telegraphs like, okay, I'm coming through, I'm here, now I wound, now I make my attack. And it really, by default, kind of forces a lot more bind work, forces a lot more fooling, forces you into Krieg more, and lets those resolutions kind of resolve from there. Fabrice's solution, applied to longsword does, is now we're moving kind of in false time, kind of not in false time. But the trick is we're not moving our body. So we're still moving our feet. I'm still stepping, sitting here. But now I'm doing this kind of, I admit, super weird looking position from here into this. Or if I really want, I can sit back, step through, and then throw my cut. So I'm really starting to break down how we think about motion, how we think about closing that distance with longsword. And at least for me, flipping on its head. So a few options to start to play with and start to feel how it works. So the first is I can throw everything in my traditional true time structure, right? Where I throw my hands out first, lead my body through, kind of, I turn my body, I don't really advance it. I kind of just sit back out of my cut. And I sit back in this same, I'm closing a little bit of space here, just by virtue of having to transfer my weight forward, but I'm not here, which I would sit normally after a passing step. Right, if that's my normal passing step, sitting back, throwing this out here, sitting back. So I'm still extended arms, but I'm just kind of refusing my body into this motion. This lets me change out, pick plays, plan things out, and just lets me kind of analyze my attacker a little bit more. If you really want to get, I guess, almost mean with it, right? This leads a lot into change throughs, the Dirk Wexels, things of that nature, where because I'm no longer here where my opponent expects me to be, right? So if I'm like this, and we're both striking at each other, and even this isn't quite at my face, but I'm kind of here working that angle, now if I kind of throw this cut, step, but don't take that step, now this is so much farther away from me. I don't care what it does. I can start doing failures and other dropped actions, which I can then step through after later, step offline, kind of playing with those things and seeing how those turn out. The other option, the kind of even more extreme variation of this, is instead of leading with the hands and getting the sword out in front of me, I can lead with my foot. I can get away with this because I'm not really advancing. Right? It goes back to the idea that if I'm good at my measure, good at my distance control, I can sit here, I can take this step, I can sit back in this kind of goofy foot position. I'm not quite in a full Von Tog. I'm just going to refuse back-weighted stance. If this is real, I don't know. But I can sit here and do whatever I want. From this position, because my hips are still pointed off to my right, I can still turn through into a normal cut if I need to. I have to be aware that I am closer, and I really make sure I'm controlling that space more, and that I do risk that I kind of false security of coming out like this. But I can sit back here take that passing step, really sit on my back leg, and turn this out. And just making sure that this comes out before I lean. Maybe it comes out with a cross step with my front foot to recreate that space I've lost if I need to. What this also lets me do is I can step here, and now I can drop to another guard, another position, and kind of turn this into that same lunge we saw from the rapier work. So again, I'm back to the same benefits we had with the one-handed weapons, where as I make this step, I shift my weight to pick my foot up, and I come through, and all of a sudden I'm covering a step and a half, close to 2 steps with, as Fabrice would call it, 2 tempos of action, picking up the foot, putting it back down, just how I shift my body and shift my weight. So again, playing with this idea, sneak the foot out, not even sneak it out, just step forward, keep your body refused, then when you need to act, whatever your next action needs to be, throwing that out with that follow step. So I think this has a whole lot of good potentials to it. You can start doing it the reverse way as well, where I cheat my left leg forward. I can even feel this right now. And now I can really spring into a good cut with good timing, good posture, and really throwing this out, coming through the same way. So again, instead of starting here, I cheat this up, staying heavily back weighted. So they may think they're out of distance, they may think they're safe, and then I can just throw a normal cut, closing all that space. So there's a handful of really cool, really fun options you can start digging into just by playing with footwork in this way. Again, just to kind of recap where this all came from, what we're really looking to do, kind of highlight everything. Fabrice, Art of Dueling, he talks about how do I close from long to close. And he talks about shifting all your weight to your back leg, sneaking that foot forward, seeing what they do, finding your opening. And if you have it, if they haven't retreated back, you can just transfer and lunge to make your wound, to make your attack. All the while keeping yourself safe, keeping yourself refused, so you're not committing to this action. If I just walk in like this, there's a 50-50 chance, no statistician, but a 50-50 chance of them countering my attack and knocking me offline. So I need to close that distance quicker. I need to cheat my distance, get this foot forward, refusing my body, so that as I pass, I can just come into a straight lean. I can step offline if I need to with a passing step. There's lots of options he kind of plays with that kind of originate from this cheated step. I don't have a good word for it. If you've got one, comment below. I'm open to suggestions. Apparently, secret step is a thing that's completely separate from this, so I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But that's the concept from Fabrice, right? Where we start, I put my foot forward, refusing my body, keeping all my weight on my back leg, and then I'm able to lean in quickly, I'm able to step offline. I have lots of options that open up from that footwork. Taking that very simply to any kind of single-handed weapon, Dusak, Messer, any kind of cut and thrust type thing. Same exact principles are applying here, right? If I'm up and watch, I might throw a cut without advancing, just advancing that foot, not my body, which lets me come out here and strike through much quicker, much deeper than my opponent may be expecting. And just really starting to play the idea with that here. Cut, I don't advance, and then I kind of see what shows up, developing from there. Bring it over to longsword, because we involve both feet more than those weapons. We get a couple extra options to play with. Easiest starting from Von Tog. I can start really adjusting my idea, not always cutting in true time all the time. I can throw a cut, passing step, we're fusing this foot, look at distance, exposed distance, start playing with change throughs, things of that nature. I can take a passing step at this close distance without cutting, kind of arriving this goofy-footed Von Tog-like position, which I have theories Metal calls this squinter. I don't know, I haven't gotten there yet. But this reverse foot position isn't an uncommon position. We see it a lot in several other disciplines, several other manuscripts, and things to play with. The other option, again, is You can kind of do that from reverse, where you switch your feet staying back so your opening cut can cover a lot more ground than it would normally. So a few things to play with. Really looking into this idea of combining that, I don't know, that messy rapier, advanced foot, closing footstep. I don't know. Again, totally open to ideas and names for it. But applying that to other weapons. So as always, guys, if there are comments, questions, you want to have a discussion about this, totally feel free to reach out. If you think I've totally butchered the Febreze stuff, let me know. I'd love to understand that better as well. Otherwise, everyone stay safe. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Expecting the rapier video on Friday and more of the Jude Liu on Monday night. Thanks.